Thank you for joining me this evening. I am Mervin Hanley at THG Network, and in a few months, he will face the electorate of St. Maarten and ask the folks on the Dutch side of the island for their vote. He is leader of the United People's Party, the UP Party. He is a member of Parliament. Rolando Brison, good evening and welcome.
Hello, good evening, Mervin. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, I invite you here, Rolando, MP Bryson, this evening so my audience can get to know you and get to know you or get to know you better. We will discuss what's happening on the island from a government standpoint and, of course, some politics. And so here is your opportunity to tell us who is Rolando Brison. But before I get into that, I know that your colleagues in Parliament somewhat grieving over the last couple of days because a staff member would have lost a family member from media reports, a 15-year-old who might have taken his life. So such a heartbreaking story. And hopefully the family is getting the full support of government, full support of your team. Talk to us, Rolando.
Yeah, this one is especially tough for the Parliament, the family, and everyone in St. Maarten. It was really shocking news for all of us. I mean, I know Jamie personally as a friend, and the loss of her son, and you know. Anytime someone dies, it's always sad, but it's especially hurtful when it's a young person, with so much life and so much potential. So it has been very tough for us. We've actually closed Parliament on Monday and slowly transitioning to reopening because this has been a huge shock even for our staff. So, we're all mourning the loss of the young man and really pray for her strength, her family, and I think the entire island is in mourning to some extent or the other.
And of course, here at THG, we extend our deepest condolences to the family or those who are mourning. Now,
Thank you.
before this interview, I would have asked a number of folks from St. Maarten, what are the issues would they like me to address with you? And the majority, they're looking for relief, MP Bryson. They're looking for relief from the grocery stores. They're looking for food prices. They're saying that food prices are through the roof. They're looking for relief from the gas pump. They're looking for relief from their landlords. They're looking for parliament members like you for a higher wage. Now, folks at this time, I think, when they some of them would say to me that they get so lost at times with parliamentarians. They speak more constitutional matters and stuff in Holland and all of that. I'm not saying that these things are not important, mind you, but I get the impression that folks would want to hear more of the bread and butter issues at front and center. Do you think that the coalition government that you're a part of has done enough to assist the ordinary man and woman? And if you can share with us some of these accomplishments or what you think have been done over the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, first of all, I'll say I resonate and understand that sentiment from the public because I do agree that especially over the 13 years since becoming a country, that a lot of the emphasis and focus has been lost in terms of the people itself, what helps the ordinary man. And it's that reason that when having the opportunity to negotiate a government, I specifically wanted to have the two key ministries that can help the ordinary person, and that's the Ministry of Economy and Tourism Affairs, and also the Ministry of Social Affairs and Labor. And as the UP Party, we're part of a coalition. We were the smaller member of this coalition, but we made sure that we would do our part to help the people. And there's different things that were done. For sure, let's say you talk grocery prices. For the first time in a very long time, we expanded what's called the basket of goods, where there is now price control. Before, I believe it was maybe just less than a dozen items. It's now been expanded to 5-6 times that amount of items. And that has already had a very positive effect on the prices in St. Maarten. It has mitigated a lot of the supply chain issues that the world was facing, where, the formula is kind of put in place with the suppliers to say, look, we understand that maybe flour will go up, but we would then cap the profit margin on it. So although, yes, there might be what some will see as a price increase, what we've actually done is we've capped that price increase to make sure that instead of it being going up 200 or 300%, maybe it's just gone up a 10 or 20%.
Yes.
So a lot of people will not notice a lot of this because it's something that is intrinsic into the price.
Gotcha.
But more and more as society is we're promoting it more now. We've asked all of the grocery stores to actually put a QR code where the maximum prices that are now placed on price control, you can pull up your phone and really verify that the prices you're getting meet that price control standard, and that I believe has helped quite a lot. In terms of fuel, we actually, this is something that I had championed, we removed the excise or reduced the excise tax on fuel, which again, with global fuel prices going up, did the overall price of fuel go up? Yes. But what we did is we prevented it from going up much more than it would have if we didn't do anything. You see, it's about, if the fact is, Maarten is such a small country that's gravely affected by the other matters in the world. My attitude is to not make excuses and find solutions. Do the things that maybe some in the business community and maybe the large oil companies and those might not like it very much, but I know my people need it. And I think that's something that's been missing in politics, that you have someone that's willing to stand up to the big boys and say, hey, listen, you've made your millions. My people are now in need. It's time to give them the relief. So we've done that in fuel. We've done that with food. We've raised the minimum wage. That's another thing that falls under the up portfolio. The most significant increase to the minimum wage in over a decade was done under our watch. And then just 2 weeks ago, we passed the legislation in Parliament where the social pension was also increased by about 15%. But more importantly is that the law also ensures that or paves the way so that every year there's an indexation of the pension in a way that can ensure that every year, with the cost of living, our pensioners actually get more money. And then in that law as well, I presented an amendment because the legislation was kind of very open-ended in terms of when it would go into effect. I said, no, this legislation needs a definite term by which we know our seniors will feel this relief. And that amendment was accepted. It passed. So the law was amended by me. And because of that now, instead of it being maybe in a month or maybe in 2 years, it's now going to be in 7 weeks from when we had passed that law, that it will be a definitive change to the pension of our people. So if it's one thing, I do know that the people have these issues and they're right, but I think more people are realizing that if it's one group that has made actual changes that they can feel in their pocket in their everyday life, I'm very proud of the fact of what we've been able to do as the United People's Party for them.
Great. Now, St. Martin is very near and dear to me, and so the future of St. Martin I have great interest in. And your party, the Up Party, is part of a coalition government. You've joined with the National Alliance, whose leader is the current Prime Minister, Sylvia Jacobs. So I want to say congratulations on keeping that coalition together. And we have a few months left, but and I say congratulations because we have seen, and with all due respect, we have seen a few unstable governments from your territory. So how has it been, and what's the secret in keeping this coalition together? Because every time you turn around and say, Martin, there is an election or a government will fall. So you guys must be applauded for keeping this together, and you have a few months left.
Yeah, this is the longest serving government. It's something that I'm proud of in one sense, but that also means that it's a bit something to be ashamed of politically in terms of the history of our country, where despite having so many veteran leaders in the past, somehow they were not able to put aside their differences and, stop the petty squabbles, and then just one person doesn't get what they want and then immediately the government falls. My attitude was, first of all, listening to what the electorate was most concerned about in 2020. And this was the number one topic. Every interview, every debate, we're tired of elections. Why is the election every other year? And why so much instability? The business community, investors, they hate the fact that government falls because there's no kind of certainty. There's no kind of
no economic stability.
Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it came down to really listening to the electorate and delivering on the promise, and knowing that that is something that you don't forget what your electorate really was clamoring for, and making it at the forefront. And as in terms of my diplomacy, my ability in Parliament to kind of understand where some people are not being, where their constituents are not pleased, making sure that it's given the sufficient attention. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these problems had to do with a very selfish attitude to leadership, where, well, I'm the leader and we doing this and that's it. That's not my style. I'm a very inclusive leader. I'm a team player. I listen to everyone, and we're very democratic in that sense. That, hey, if I have so many people within the team that want to go in this direction, then don't sully the wishes of that entire team for the one or two who are just being insistent for no reason. And I think that's something that the rest of the coalition respected, that I stood my ground for the entire team. The party has stood behind me thick and thin, because they realize that it's no longer about just one person or anyone. It's about the team. And if you want to be a part of this team, then you need to be someone that listens to everyone, because everyone can't be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can't be right. But the job of a leader, in my opinion, is to kind of make an amalgam of all those opinions and get everybody in one direction. And I think that's been the key, being able to get everybody on board and to buy in to move forward. And the one or two who didn't like it, then it's their choice to leave. But then their leaving would not diminish the work of the government or cause the fall of the government. And that's where we've been successful.
You have a passion for tourism. A matter of fact, I believe that you were head of the tourist bureau at one time. Um, what is the and now you have the ministry? Well, a part of the coalition. Your party, your side, you have the ministry of a TIAT of tourism and economic development and all of that. So,
Yeah.
St. Martin seems to be busy daily, nonstop. So, in this area, are you satisfied? I see a number of announcements regarding airlift and additional hotel rooms. So, where are you at right now? Are you satisfied?
I'm never satisfied when it comes to tourism. As you said, I'm a tourism professional, and I always want our industry not just to improve in terms of numbers, but coming back to your first question, I do want to see the industry translate more into our communities and into the local benefits that it can bring to our people. So, what we've been very successful in is with COVID-19. I mean, you can, let's say, juxtapose, and in speaking to some of the politicians in St. Kitts, they would say in hindsight, the manner in which the previous government handled COVID-19 and balancing the need for the safety of its citizens with not allowing the tourism industry to go standard for a year and a half. Well, we did the opposite. We were one of the first countries that came up, I think, with the perfect balance. The EHAS system, where tourists were able to come in, but then upload their tests in advance. Having the necessary balance between the health and safety of our citizens and our visitors, but allowing the industry to continue to flourish even during a pandemic. And we were heavily criticized at the time. I was very vocal about the fact that St. Martin needs to reopen. But I stood firm despite the criticism at the time, because I believe that St. Martin people are hardworking people. We don't want handouts. We don't want anything for free. We want to be able to work for what we want, and the industry is 90% of our GDP. So therefore, we had to find a way, and I think we did it. I think we allowed the industry to still continue in a very balanced manner. And what that also did for St. Martin's tourism is that it opened us up to new markets. We got people traveling to St. Martin that never even knew of St. Martin, because they would simply Google which Caribbean island is open. And the list, if you normally would Google that right now, you would have 26, 27 different destinations to choose from. But at the time, it basically boiled down to St. Martin and the Dominican Republic. We were the first two countries to open in the Caribbean. So we got so many people that now discovered St. Martin and have loved St. Martin like many other tourists, that we've opened. We got the best marketing that you can ever get just by getting people to come and experience the island that never did before. So because of that, with the issues within the aviation industry in terms of shortage aircraft, of airline personnel. You see just even in Schiphol, for example, where even until recently they have shortage of personnel, where the lines are so long and the demand is so high.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of in a situation where we kind of, some people would call it a great problem to have, where there's so many people coming to the island. However, the negative effect is that the more people that are on a plane, the higher the airfare, because everyone's getting the last few seats that are the
Yes.
highest fare
Yes.
code.
Yes, MP Bryson,
So
those airfares now. I mean, I remember the days of traveling to and from St.
mhm,
Martin for three. I'm not saying that it's not happening now, but for $300, $400. But now you look, the
mhm.
airfares from Miami or even Dallas, you're getting them from 900 to 1100. Like, whoa.
Yeah, and that has to do with the fact that, again, the airline industry has its own challenges. They have limited aircraft and personnel, and the demand in the United States, which is our biggest market, the United States has really shifted immensely to domestic tourism. Ever since COVID-19, many more people are being wary of, you know what, if I live in Arkansas, something like that, maybe I'll go to Florida instead of to
Mm-hmm.
St. Martin this year, and that transition is still happening. But what we did do, because we knew, okay, we see the demand is shifting extremely high for St. Martin. I would tell you, or anyone listening right now, try to book a flight to St. Martin or go online and look at maybe January or February. You'll notice there the price is $300, $400 round trip out of Miami. Because what we did is we took action to make sure, negotiate with the airlines far in advance, so that for our next high season, we would have additional flights. We'll have additional flights out of New York. We'll have additional flights out of Miami. And as long as the demand can be met by the supply, the prices go down. A lot of people think that the airlines just randomly decided to raise their prices. They're really charging the same price structure. It's just that it's abnormal that on a 737 with 130 passengers, that 125 on every flight is booked. So those last 25 people are getting the highest fare. Normally we try to keep within 70 to 80% outside of the peak, so that the fare prices are nominal. But I think we've solved that by ensuring that we do proper route development in the longer term, so that we won't have this in an upcoming high season.
And you know what? You are not misleading. You're not misleading when you say if you go online and they check the fares from January thereabout and you see a lower fares, and you're
Yeah.
absolutely correct because I'm here
Yep.
now and I have just typed in from Dallas in December, from Dallas to
Hmm.
St. Martin round trip. I have it from December to February, and the fare I am getting for that, well, for now, it's $610.
Yeah, and that's December, which is a peak. You'll probably get it
Yes.
lower than that in January,
Mm-hmm.
and that's to show you. Imagine that it's more expensive right now in the lowest of the season to come to St. Martin than then, and that has to do with, for example, Miami. Your connection in Dallas is probably going via Miami.
Right.
Currently, we only have one flight a day out of Miami. By then, we'll have two flights a day. So the airlines are able to restructure their fare codes and say, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, we'll still make a profit while offering those lower fare codes, because now we have double the number of people that are able to travel there. So it
Yes.
really comes down to a good understanding of airline route mechanics. I actually have a certification in route development, so I lend my expertise to the ministers, to the ministry, to make sure that my knowledge, although I'm a parliamentarian, I still have a passion for tourism, and I as a parliamentarian, I'm allowed to have work visits with the ministry, and I
Right.
offer them this guidance. They welcome it very much, because everyone knows how successful I was as tourism director. And because of that, these are, let's say, other than having the opportunity to say it now so people can know, these are the unsung victories, or the unsung actions that the United People's Party takes to make sure that our tourism industry flourishes. Because not everything is for credit. Some things is just you have to do it because the people need it.
Right.
So I'm happy to have the opportunity to enlighten the public and others around the world who are traveling to St. Martin what I'm still doing, even as a member of parliament, to make sure that our airfares stay low.
Yep. And since that we are speaking about airfares, well, two questions. We're up against the break, but let me get in two quick questions before that.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned the EHAS earlier in the conversation, and that is, of course, going online during COVID, and you make the booking and all of that, and you upload your information, rather, your vaccine card and whatever have you. Um, but there was a charge at 20, was it $20? I can't remember exactly. I think it was
It was $15.
$15. $15.
Yeah.
Now, can I say I think you made a lot of $15, right? So, was there a fund for this though? Because I know that many came. It just went to probably some sort of fund. So, was there a fund for this in terms of?
You know,
Uh huh.
unfortunately, and this is something that I really had a big disagreement with our minister at the time, because I like to be able to allow our ministers to take their decisions. I don't, like I said, that's what contributes to stability.
Mm-hmm.
But I had advised the minister at the time, and what to not have a third party insurance company, because what that $15 for was to provide an insurance.
Yes.
But what we did is we had a company that's primarily based not even in St. Maarten, out of Curacao, that was collecting this $15 and was supposed to provide an insurance. I said that we have our own national insurance. We could have kept that money within the country. Unfortunately, we had a different view. I allowed her, of course, to do what she felt was best. But St. Martin lost out on a couple $1 million because we did not do that.
So you're saying that the $15 that was we paid, that wasn't going to a fund on Saint Martin or to the government,
No,
coffers?
no, unfortunately not.
Wow.
That minister has since left our party. I think she realized that she was not in line with our way of thinking, and I think now you and others will realize that these are the type of things where our line of thinking would have been right. You know, we should have put those funds in a local fund in St. Martin, allow it to be managed by our national insurance, and those funds could have been, would have been here for St. Martin. But what I did do, Marvin, is again, I don't just sit down and complain.
Mm-hmm.
I drafted legislation to actually create now what would be called a tourist levy. Because one of the interesting things about that $15, when in the sign-up form, you're able to give any feedback. There's a little box if you have any questions or feedback or complaints. And most of that, where people would have complained, was maybe that, it took too long for me to get an answer on my EHAS and stuff like that. Almost no one complained about the $15. It shows that the market is not as price sensitive as especially the international organizations like IATA, who try to tell you, you can't charge tourists so much, which is nonsense. Because if you have a quality destination, a tourist is not going to say, I'm not going to St. Martin because they're charging $15 for me to come there. Most tourists understand, especially if you let them know that this is going towards a health levy that will help benefit, keep you insured in St. Martin, but also benefit the local population. Or an environmental levy like the BAVI has, where the $10 goes directly to keeping the environment clean and safe. Tourists pay it. So I drafted that legislation. We got some feedback from our Council of Advice, where it had many technical issues that I still needed to resolve, but I didn't have the capacity within my parliament to do that. So I then handed it over to the Ministry of Health, who has more legal capacity. They then completed the draft, and that's on its way to Parliament. So we learn from these type of things, and we legislate it. That's really the role of members of Parliament, and that's the role that I embrace.
I am disappointed to hear that though, because I am here thinking, counting your dollars and thinking, wow, St. Martin has made millions from this. So we're going to see funds now going to build the schools. We're going to see road infrastructure and all of that, not knowing that it wasn't in St. Martin. That's unfortunate. That's quite unfortunate. Now, the airport. Man, I know it's been a long while. It's been a long time coming, but I'm seeing now, and we have some photos on the screen of what's going to happen in very soon. The departure hall. It's been a long time for the Princess Juliana Airport, but it appears that things are now coming together, and it's going to be a great day for St. Martin and tourists.
Yeah, I was just speaking yesterday on the radio about this whole saga, because people wonder, why was the airport so delayed? In 2018, when I first became a member of parliament, and the government was, at the time, I was an opposition member. I was just a young little MP. Nobody wants to listen to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I told them, when I reviewed the World Bank document and the agreement, I said, guys, if you sign this, that airport is not going to be completed nowhere near the time frame that you're talking about, which would have been 2 to 3 years, because the World Bank, for those that are unaware, the entire funding for the airport construction, the tendering process, the entire process was managed by 2 entities:
Mm-hmm.
the World Bank and the Royal Schiphol Group, which is the airport from Amsterdam. I said and warned at the time that don't think that just because it's a larger country, they understand how to operate in smaller countries. When you're building a new terminal in Amsterdam, you have the entire resources of the Netherlands before you. You have manufacturing companies right there. You have all of the labor. You have all of this. You're not in a hurricane belt, so you don't have to consider seasonality. You don't have all of that to worry about. I said we have our own local experts here. If you want to put the whole World Bank bureaucracy on other projects, I would say no problem, but not the air. That's the gateway to our country.
Yes.
Nobody listened, and here we are, going on 7 years later, where the progress was, as I predicted, would be way slower. But when we got in 2020, we didn't just say, all right, well, we can't do nothing. No, we came in and we, especially considering that we had the portfolio of tourism, we had been instrumental in ensuring that even worse delays would not have been in place. We interacted with the airport and ensured that the manner in which, so the phases in which they were going to reopen and all of these type of things were readjusted, used with the limited let's say, effect or the limited influence that we had as a government, because again, this is all tied up in a whole other bureaucratic process that the government of St. Maarten had very limited influence. But the limited influence that we did have, I think, actually prevented it from opening even later than it is now.
Okay.
But we're happy that by November 1st, the largest part of the project would be completed, which is the departure and check-in area. That would just leave the arrival area to be completed by the second quarter of 2024, which means that our next high season will have a brand new, great state-of-the-art airport once again. We hope to be now again the leader in terms of airport quality and standards in the entire Caribbean. So we're happy that is now going to be behind us. And the most important thing is to learn the lessons from this.
Yes.
When you have your members of parliament that are coming with cogent arguments as to why something is detrimental to St. Maarten, sometimes people need to pump the brakes and listen. Because if people listened to me back then, we would not be in the situation we were now. By the time my government came in, all these agreements were signed, sealed, delivered. It would have been a huge diplomatic nightmare to even now try to get out of those agreements, as well as a legal nightmare. So we kind of had to row with the boat that we had. But we found a way to still get it done, and we're very proud that within this term, we've managed to complete the airport.
Great. We're up against the break, so let's hear from Carl & Sons Bakery on your lovely island of St. Maarten. And when we come back, we'll have more with MP Rolando Brison. Carl & Sons have been serving the people of St. Maarten for over 40 years. And the food and service get better and better. From early morning, customers flock to the bakery for their favorite sandwiches, cakes, pastries, you name it. First thing at mornings and last thing at afternoons, folks rush to Carl & Sons for simply the best. There are 2 locations, Colbay and on the Punfill. In Colbay, the opening hours are Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Saturdays, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Sundays, 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Opening hours on the Punfill, Monday to Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. We also cater for weddings, parties, special events, whatever the occasion. It's Carl & Sons. Our staff, we are always happy to serve you. Call us today, the Colbay location, 721-544-2462. That's 721-544-2462. Or in Phillipsburg, 721-543-1059. That's 721-543-1059. It's Carl and Sons Bakery. We are here to serve you. And we're back, and I am speaking to Member of Parliament of Dutch St. Martin, Mr. Rolando Brison. MP Bryson, I've seen great progress in the construction of the General Hospital. I know that too, just like the airport, took a while. I know, yes, you've had some delays, but I can see that you guys are pushing through. How has that been for your government, and when is the completion date for this hospital?
Yeah, the hospital is, similar story as the airport. It was an alarm. I was in Parliament once again in 2018. I really researched and looked deeply into this issue. And it was an issue of tunnel vision where the United People's Party back in 2014 had an entire plan for it. And now you'll see the example of where the government instability hugely affects our country, because then, I believe it was in 2015, the government fell. A new minister came in, that was Minister Amy Lee, together with the Democratic Party, and they basically took our entire plans for the new General Hospital and put it in a shredder, started and selected a new company that turned out to be bankrupt, still continued to insist on that, used a financing arranger that's from the Parman Group, which is connected to the Mullet Bay, which is now closed for 30 years. So they added disaster on disaster on disaster to effectively make it that from 2014 until 2020, when we got into government, not a single brick, not a piece of wood, not a shaft of steel was done in terms of the airport, in terms of the hospital. When we came in, one of the things I told our Minister Otley is I said, Minister, one of the great reasons why I decided that you should be our Minister of Health and Social Affairs is that I know you campaigned on a lot of social and labor issues, but you're a civil engineer. You are a someone very experienced in construction. I need you to get to the bottom of what the real issues are with the hospital and find a compromising way for us to get this off the ground. The people need a hospital. That's all I asked of Minister Otley, and he made me very proud, because there's a drone shot that was taken in April of 2021 where you basically just seeing dirt. And then there's another shot of 1 year later where you see after the largest single pour of concrete in the history of St. Martin took place, after all the cranes went up, all the excavation work, you see in the movement finally under our leadership as leaders of this party, him in the ministry, me in Parliament. And it shows that we are a type of group where we're solution oriented. When everyone else was in 2015 and 16 and 17, 18, 19, 20, just making excuses, we found a solution. And that's why the hospital is now on track again. That's why there's so much activity in terms of the concrete. The foundation has been poured. That's a very critical part of it in terms of making sure this multi-level structure is safe and will be durable in the long term. Now we're going to see the walls going up. We're going to start finishing the first floor. So every year, the entire project is a huge project. It's a multi-level building with also parking and all of this. That would be done by, let's say, the early 2026. But over every year, there's going to be a certain section that will be open and available to the public, so people will already start to feel the benefits of this new hospital already in 2024 and 2025. So I think it's great that we've been able to light a fire under this project. And again, just like the airport, we have to learn from these type of things where people are making deals just because they want their selected contractor to work, just because they want their friends in finance that are now have been discovered to be, totally corrupt and totally ineffective for St. Martin. No one was able to just say, guys, you know what, this is a bad idea. For the sake of St. Martin, let's stop. But we did. And we found one of the things that was done is that a negotiation took place with the Italian government and a larger contractor that took over the formerly bankrupt INSO and created a new company called FINSO, so like a financially sound INSO. And they're doing well. They've subcontracted the contractors. All of the financing is in place. They have all the necessary guarantees. We've come to an agreement on the price. So we're really now going in the right direction.
Another favorite topic of yours is not in tourism, but I've been following you and you've been leading the charge on some banking laws and amendments, and probably you want to just touch on that and exactly where are you on that and how are you? Because I know that even for St. Martin is all under banking, some friends I have, and it is so
Hmm.
difficult sometimes, MP Bryson, to open a bank, just a simple bank account,
Yeah, it's
you know.
crazy.
And I saw a meme on social media the other day. Oh, you have to get a letter from this and that, and then you have to ask your mother. They would be just being sarcastic and stuff. It was a joke.
Yes, of course.
Y-
You
y-
need a sample of your DNA.
Yes, yes, yes. And I mean, where are you in that now? Is it easier now, or how successful have you been thus far?
Well, in terms of the banking situation, this is an example in St. Martin where, again, the previous political figures, it seemed, either were scared or unwilling to challenge institutions like this that are extremely powerful, that can be very vindictive, and they went unchallenged for decades.
Hmm.
I was the first person in the Parliament of St. Martin to ever start to really question the banking first and discover the issue, which is that unlike most European territories, which we are, we're a European overseas territory, every single person has the right to a bank account except in St. Martin. And that was very important for me to establish. It's a European directive that was passed in 2014. All countries have implemented it, but St. Martin did not. And I've been pushing and insisting that this had to be done. First, tried to see if the banks would be able to do this on a voluntary basis, and they refused. They use all kinds of excuses, and it's excuses,
Hmm.
about AML and all of these regulations, but it's nonsense because all of these other European countries have found a way to do it. And they have many people that have bank accounts that are even asylum seekers, that come from countries of
Yes.
extremely high financial risk, but they can get a bank account. But our local people, where in our country we have a relatively low, if you look at it on a per capita basis, a very low rate of financial crime. This whole thing about calling the Caribbean this sort of money laundering tax haven, that is absolute nonsense and a farce, in my opinion, that is being placed on the Caribbean by the international community to prevent our banking sector from flourishing the way that it could and the way that it did in the 70s and 80s. Because those large countries themselves want to keep the banking sector, and those countries themselves, when you look at states like Delaware,
Yes.
those are where the real banking tax havens are, not the Caribbean. And we've come to the point where, sure, you know what, you all want to keep your offshore banking sector, no problem. But let my people have their bank accounts. Let them have proper banking. And I think that the banks have been largely complicit in this. They have just become vaults rather than institutions of lending. What I mean by that is that they have no interest. They're all over liquid. They have way more money than they should for the standards of a financial institution,
Hmm.
because they make it so hard not only for you to get a bank account, but for you to get a mortgage, because that's not their interest. They're more interested in collecting fees. I remember looking at the financial statements of one bank in 2013 and comparing it, no, 2012, and comparing to the financial statements in 2022. And you saw an interesting flip where, let's say, for example, their interest from income was $1 million in 2012, and their income from fees was 500,000. Now their income from interest is 500,000, and their income from fees is $1 million.
Wow.
So they've become a very, very predatory sort of act where they're no longer interested in earning their money by lending money. They just want to earn fees. And the key to that was we needed legislation.
Yes.
So I drafted the legislation. I presented that draft in a parliament meeting, but it did require vetting from the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of the Central Bank. So I passed a motion to make it stronger that the parliament wants this law to come. So you're going to vet it, but you're not going to sit on it. You're going to work on it, and you're going to get it. And I'm so happy to hear that at the final stage of advice, which is the council advice, has been completed. So that legislation is on its way to Parliament. And within the next month or so, when we pass that law, a lot of these banking issues are going to be solved. And that was an important milestone for me, because I believe banking affects everyone in our country.
Yes.
I'm proud that I was a pioneer in being able to solve this issue for our people. And 20% of our population is unbanked. That's unheard of. That's such an extremely low standard that you only find in war-torn countries or countries with huge civil unrest. St. Maarten is not that type of country, and our people deserve banking, and my banking legislation is finally going to solve that.
Are you working on amending the national ordinance to have nightclubs remain open until 5 a.m.? I've been hearing about that. You've been getting some pushback. Is it an election appetizer? What is that about?
No, that's just from opposing people that either pretend to not be able to read or can't read, and I'm talking about the opposition members. Mm-hmm. What it is that the legislation the primary goal was to actually create legislation for noise pollution. But in that same legislation, there's an antiquated law or area in the law where from dating back to 1963, supermarkets legally are supposed to close at 6. Bars and restaurants were supposed to close at 9 or 10 p.m. and nightclubs are supposed to close at 12. So what has happened over the years is that ministers have actually just ignored the law and just continued to grant exemptions, which is not proper legal practice. Mm-hmm. An exemption should be a very rare event for a very highly motivated reason. And what needed to happen was the law needed to be updated. So what I did is that I looked at all supermarkets, all restaurants, all nightclubs, and I looked at what the latest opening hour was and then changed the law to that. But because that is being misconstrued, because now in the law, it just says maximum closing time. So it is still the duty of the minister to use and juxtapose to our spatial planning ordinance, to our new noise regulations and say, no, mm-hmm. You nightclub, the law allows that the latest possible time you can be granted a license is 5 a.m., but I'm going to give you 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. or 12 a.m. But, politics is at play. It's an election year, so yes. Somebody tried to spin it as Rolando wants every nightclub in Samantha open till 5. No, that's nonsense. If you read the law, it's clearly the maximum time that can be granted, which is already being done, is 5 a.m. But what I did to make sure that this is not misconstrued is I've since even amended my amendment to the law. And instead of using the latest time, I'm using the median. So we took all of the nightclubs, for example, and we say, all right, if the earliest one closes at 12, the latest one closes at 5, instead of using the latest time as the quote-unquote maximum, we use the median, which is 2:30. And then the minister would only grant exemptions for a business that the minister believes can open past 2:30. At least then it would lessen the number of exemptions that we have to give, and it would make it clear that the intention behind this law is not to allow all nightclubs to open till 5, because that's certainly not the case. As much as I believe that the nightlife industry is a very important part of our tourism product, there's no way I would agree to every single nightclub and bar opening till 5 a.m. That would have disastrous consequences. That's not the intention of the law. So I've made that adjustment to make sure that people can't misconstrue my intentions.
Great. Let's take another break here from Carl & Sons Bakery on St. Martin. And when we come back, I'll ask MP Brison some questions, this time on politics. We'll be right back.
Maarten & Sons have been serving the people of St. Martin for over 40 years. And the food and service get better and better. From early morning, customers flock to the bakery for their favorite sandwiches, cakes, pastries, you name it. First thing at mornings and last thing at afternoons, folks rush to Carl & Sons for simply the best. There are 2 locations, Colbay and on the Punfill. In Colbay, the opening hours are Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Saturdays, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Sundays, 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Opening hours on the Punfill, Monday to Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 6:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. We also cater for weddings, parties, special events, whatever the occasion. It's Carl & Sons. Our staff, we are always happy to serve you. Call us today, the Colbay location, 721-544-2462. That's 721-544-2462. Or in Phillipsburg, 721-543-1059. That's 721-543-1059. It's Carl and Sons Bakery. We are here to serve you.
We're back at THG Network, and now MP Brison, let's get into some politics before we end this interview. Now, the party that you now lead, the UP party, first of all, you had a great Congress, by the way. I've been following the Congress. I followed the Congress, rather, and you seem to have a very large turnout there. So kudos to that. But the UP party, you've been through, and it was important for you too because of what you've been through. You guys have been through a lot. You've had the founder, Theo Heiliger. I think he's no longer with the party. His wife, Grisha Heiliger Maarten, who is also a member of parliament, she has left the leadership of UP. She has left UP. She's now with the Democratic Party, DP. And has this affected your party in any way? And what brought about such a strained relationship? Why they had to leave?
You know, the interesting thing about it is that while, you know, and I always tell people, you have to understand that Theo Heiliger is in a very awkward position. Mm-hmm. He handpicked the next leader of this party to be me, which means he saw something in me. He probably predicted that the success that we've had in being able to keep the government together, in being able to deal with things like a pandemic, in being able to help the people. Mm-hmm. I think deep down, he's very proud of what the leader that he selected has been able to do. The problem is that he chose also to have his wife be on the party, and the intention was never for her to be the leader. It was really for her to be there as a support, somebody that still shows that there's a presence of Theo Heiliger within the party. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, her ambitions changed very quickly after the election, and that was never the intention. Our agreement, me and Theo, that I'm sure he will acknowledge, is that I would have 2 terms as leader. If after that the party wants to select Omar or Grisha or whoever else, that would be up to them. My commitment to leadership in the party is 2 terms. I told them the other day, I said, guys, even if I ask, don't come to me because this leadership thing, you know, it's fun, but it's rough. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to be able to transition, you know, maybe to just being a minister or being a member of parliament that can focus more on legislation. But leadership brings a whole other tool to it. And I think it's also good to identify and create that movement within the party for new leaders.
So is this your final term as leader of the UP?
Then after this election, that will be my final term, and then after going into the next election, I will remain as a member of parliament if elected, but we will then have a new leader.
Okay.
So basically, this is now my 4th year. After 8 years, I would stop being the leader of the party.
Okay.
And that was something clear. That was something everybody within the party knew. But for some reason, her eyes were just on the leadership, just the title of leader, I guess, and despite not being somebody that has exemplified the sort of attitude of a leader in terms of being inclusive, being able to listen to the opinions of others, not only wanting to have things your way, not constantly fighting with people, despite not having those qualities that her own husband did not identify in her, which is why he asked me to be leader and not her. We had that back and forth. And I was willing to deal with that internally for as long as possible, until it started to affect the team. Because that's where I draw the line. If you want to come after me and you want to make my life live in hell, that's okay. I can deal with it. But it started to come to the point where other members were wanting to leave the party. At one point, the government was at risk at falling because of her actions and a lot of the things that to this day I don't want to slander her and go into what has been happening behind closed doors. But it was coming to the point where even our minister, which everyone feels is one of the best ministers St. Maarten's ever had, his position was being put at risk. And that's where I drew the line and said, look, you are now coming to the point where you are putting the entire country, the party, our ministers at risk. So you need to make a choice. It's either you can remain and do that, or we will have to take actions in terms of not having you as a chair of parliament because you're abusing that function to basically antagonize our ministers when they don't do what you want or how you want. This can't work. We never asked her to leave the party. I've sent several emails, and I have all those emails where I'm imploring her and begging her. I even asked a friend of hers, which I think people know by now, Tamara Leonard, a very close friend of hers, to be a mediator between us, to try to I exhausted every option. Unfortunately, she did not change her attitude, and ultimately she decided on her own. No one asked her to leave. She decided to leave. So as much as, she has left, the one I feel bad for the most is Theo, because there was an opportunity here where we could have just worked together, where his handpicked leader could have continued to flourish. Don't get me wrong, we have our disagreements. One of the things that he will never let go to is the fact that, he's very wary of the National Alliance. He's always been concerned about the fact that we are a very progressive economic party, and that the National Alliance that he believes is not as progressive, very, very conservative in their actions, and very socialist. He's very concerned about the fact that the Up Party gets lost in that. And I can understand that concern. We've had those debates. But I don't believe in his heart and in his brilliant political mind that I know he has, that he thinks supporting the Democratic Party was a good move. As a matter of fact, I know he doesn't. But he's in an awkward position. What do? Are you going to just, have your wife and not at least, show some kind of support? He has to, So I respect that. We've never had any qualm words towards each other. It is really a respectful relationship, I believe, that we have both ways. And part of that respect is understanding what he is facing and where politics has unfortunately blended into the home. And the extremely awkward position has led to him to going to a party that he left, a party that he called the Do-Nothing Party, a party that he called one of the most regressive parties. There's many quotes of him pointing out the problems with Sarah Westcott Williams and with that party. But it's okay because I think we and the population has moved on. We can see that with our Congress. We can see the number of people that have understood that it's not just about one individual. It's about the party itself. And I believe that deep down inside, in his heart, he's proud of what we're doing. And we're going to continue to make sure that the party that he founded is now in good hands, together with the other founders who have pledged support for the party, which is Brenda Watty and Frankie Myers, who did an excellent keynote speech and really did a full endorsement of Omar Otley, his nephew. I think we're moving in the right direction where St. Maarten knows that the party is in good hands. They're the hard-working party that get things done. And I'm not too worried about that political battle. As a matter of fact, I'm happy it's over, because now we can move on what we were supposed to be focusing on all our energy on, which is the people, and not on petty squabbles.
And finally, you spoke about your Congress, and I'm going to give you the opportunity now to let the people know, or to ask the people, or show the people, why should they vote for the United People's Party and Rolando Brison.
Well, first of all, Mervin, let me say thank you very much for the interview. It was long overdue.
Yes.
I'm happy that we finally did it. But no, I think for the people of St. Maarten, you started your interview well, in terms of the most important question. What are we doing for the people of the country? What are we doing for them to have more disposable income, for them to be able to have funds to be able to continue and work for the people of St. Maarten? And I really think that it's a campaign that is different. It's a campaign in terms of, we don't have to tell you so much what we're capable of, because you can see it. You can feel it when you go to the grocery store. You can see it when you get your pay slip with the higher wages. You can see it when you go and collect your pension. You look around and you see that the island is bustling with activity in terms of tourism, all under the leadership of our two ministries. And you can see the most active, the most well-researched, the most cogent speaker in Parliament in terms of what a representative should be when you're voting in a parliamentary election. I think the team that we have, led by myself and Minister Otley, it's a very good 1-2 punch in terms of him being the executive and me being the legislator. You find all aspects that need to be covered, the social aspects, the economic aspects within the UP party. We get things done. We work hard. We're no nonsense. We are very solution oriented. The police have us to thank, not just once but twice, for them being able to get paid. All of these issues that have been faced by the country, we took it head on and we solved it. So I think the people of St. Maarten are going to vote and are going to vote overwhelmingly for the UP party, seeing that we are the party that can actually get things done to their benefit. That they can rest assured that if we had 2 ministries last time, imagine what we would do with 3 or 4 or 5 or more. And that is the idea that I think people have realized that last election, I think we pulled off a miracle going from 0 to 4 seats. I believe there's going to be another miracle in the next election. And we just need their support to make that happen. Believe in the fact that we will not stop being the hard workers and the strong representatives that you've enjoyed over the last 4 years. And that over the next 4 years, we'll expand on that with the many great candidates, some new, some have been here before, but all are people that have that same mantra. Work hard for the people of St. Maarten and vote for the United People's Party.
Rolando Brison, MP Rolando Brison. Actually, that was supposed to be my last question, but while you were talking, I couldn't help but to think of something else to ask you. I'm enjoying this. Now, you said vote overwhelmingly for the UP party. Fine. What if there's a scenario where, of course, you do not get the number of seats you'd like to form a government on your own? Would you join again with the National Alliance? Is it going to be, yes, here we are, let's do this again, guys? Or would there be some reluctance this time around?
Well, one thing that I think everyone in the political circle on all political parties have probably realized is that you want Rolando Brison as a coalition partner. My diplomacy, my skill in being able to represent well in Parliament and keep a government together. I believe that if it is going to be a coalition government, it's going to include the UP party, if not just for that alone, but also for our ability to be a good partner. So whatever coalition is formed, it would definitely include the UP party. The National Alliance has been a good partner. I can't say that we've had disagreements. We have had some. And I think the key would be to address those disagreements in another governing accord. That if we were to form with them, there are certain things that I would want to see different. I would want to see the shareholder reps instituted so our ministers have better oversight over government-owned companies. I would like to see adjustments to the screening legislation and make it more fairer and less subjective in terms of the minister's screening. I would like to see a better and more action for tax reform. That was something that didn't fall under our ministry. I know that the minister really has been doing his best because he has had to first, deal with, I think, like 8 years of backlog financial statements and so on. So now that we've got that out of the way, I think in the next term we would need to focus on tax reform more, let's say, more diligently. And if we can come to those agreements, that is something that is possible. But like I said, I have no doubt that the United People's Party would be in government, because everybody knows they can work with us. They know that we are the party that can help even their ambitions get things done. Because a lot of the things that our coalition partner has done very closely in consultation with me, because I take time to really think about everybody's situations and whatever ministry, whether it's education, finance, Vromi. I keep good relationships with them because at the end of the day, you might be another party, but we're all working for St. Maarten. I'm not going to say, well, as much as I focus a lot on making sure that our ministries have excelled, any minister that comes to me with any situation, I help them, I advise them, I bring legislation for all ministries, not just the ministries of Tiat and Viesa that we had. So I think we're a great coalition partner, and it's going to be an interesting negotiation next election to ensure that some of the things that we did not get to include in our previous governing accord, that those are included. And as long as those can be included, we're happy to be a coalition partner.
And I can't wait to witness the next election on St. Maarten. MP Brison, thank you so much for joining me at THG Network.
All right. Thank you very much.